Welcome in. It is the Thursday, October 29 edition of the NFL Spotlight Show. I am your host, Ari Meirov. Week 9 of the NFL season officially kicks off tonight. We have the Miami Dolphins and the Baltimore Ravens. The NFL trade deadline is coming up here on Tuesday. Of course, earlier this week, we did a full trade deadline preview. Who are the candidates to get traded? Who's buying? Who's selling? Some of the names that we mentioned have already been traded. We're going to cover some of it here on the show today. And we have some massive extension news to get to as well. Let me bring in my good friend Ben Allen. Ben, what's going on? How are you?
I am lovely. Yeah, trades are starting to heat up. We got a little less of a week, until we're going to be seeing all the moves that go down. But we got to talk about the biggest move of the day, which had nothing to do with the trades, that being Aidan Hutchinson extending with the Lions 4 years, $180 million in a non-quarterback record of $141 million guaranteed, sliding him ahead of Micah Parsons, even though he didn't quite get as much money. We got to start with a funny thing though, Kier, because you always like to bust out your news. And I was a little surprised by the way that you executed your imaging for it. So for those who are watching right now, you can see a nice little difference here from a still image you typically get from an Ari Meirov post. You want to explain your nice little AI video here?
Yeah, I do because first of all, I didn't realize how good it looks now that I'm watching it. It actually does look pretty fire, but
Yeah.
I didn't make this. I didn't do this. I do want to give the background as to how this happened because all the comments under that tweet are like, "Oh my God, Ari, AI, you're using the videos. Why would you do that? Why don't you get a real video of him running out of the tunnel?" Like, that's what all the comments are. None of them are about, he deserves it. Great deal. Lions, great job. Like, none of the comments are about that. So I did some digging and some research to find out how in the world this happened. And I finally figured it out. So I'm going to do the behind the scenes of how I operate with news. We all knew that Aidan Hutchinson was going to get a deal from Detroit at some point. I thought it was going to happen in the offseason. They had a lot of talks leading up to week one, couldn't get it done. But I know that this is a player who would get extended. So I had that in my drafts dating back for a number of months now that he'll get an extension. And this is just the behind the scenes NFL news world. But Aidan Hutchinson's agent, Mike McCartney, he actually announces all of his news whenever a player deal gets done. He represents Kirk Cousins. When Kirk Cousins signs a free agent, he announces it himself. When Aidan Hutchinson was going to get extended, I knew he was going to announce it himself. So I had that wording exactly as it was laid out in my drafts for a number of months. And I went back to check my draft just to see how this might happen. And if you go on Twitter and you go on your drafts, basically on the bottom of it, there's this option over here called video. If you click on the image, and it basically creates a video off of your image. So I probably accidentally pressed that and then saved the draft whenever that was a long time ago. And as soon as I pressed tweet today, it obviously went off the way it was. So I tested it with a different news thing that might happen, which is also a Mike McCartney client, Ikea Kwanu, the Panthers left tackle, is extension eligible. That's it's in the draft for the future. Uh, if I just press the video here, it's going to make the picture into a video, and then whenever I tweet it, it tweets the video. So clearly, I accidentally pressed the video button, and that's basically what happened. But I gotta admit, it's pretty nice. I mean, it's not that bad.
It was so funny because when I saw this, I was like, either Ari is rage baiting right now, or I knew there was absolutely zero chance you knew how to do this initially. God love you. You're great at a lot of stuff, but technology may not necessarily always be your strongest suit.
Yeah, I mean, I was bugging and tripping for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes after this all happened, and like my comments were going crazy, my DMs were going crazy. Oh, you're better than this, and all these different things. And I was like,
It's
I
pretty
didn't
good
do
though.
anything.
It's pretty shocking how good it is.
I got it. It is pretty shocking. I mean, you could tell that it's AI, but like it is pretty decent. And obviously, when the news came out, how much the money actually was, I used the actual image that I prepared, months ago. So
Right.
that's the story behind how this all unfolded.
Let's get to the deal now because they're both very interesting though.
Yeah, I mean, good for Aidan Hutchinson, who, like we said, he was hoping to get a deal done before this season. As we know, there's a few things that happened. A, he was recovering from that gruesome injury from last year, which he really recovered smoothly from, considering how gruesome it was. But also, we know in the offseason, there were a number of pass rush deals that happened, which really made the entire market skyrocket, right? It started off Max Crosby, there was Daniel Hunter, there was the Miles Garrett deal. There was a TJ Watt deal. And then, of course, the one that probably screwed over everything was the Micah Parsons trade from Dallas to Green Bay, $46.5 million per year. That probably is where Detroit and Aiden, I should say, really had to, you know, put their talks, table it for a second. And the one thing about the Lions, which other organizations are not like this, they actually are okay with negotiating in season. There are a few teams around the NFL who are very against it. The Steelers, for example, who extended TJ Watt. If that would have went into the season, that's when negotiations cut off. The Lions are perfectly fine with doing it. They did it with Lee McNeil about a year ago. They did it with David Montgomery a couple of years ago. So they're okay with doing in season. So those talks stayed going on. They never wanted to go to $48 million per year to surpass Michael Parsons. But the trade off here was a better guarantee structure, better rolling guarantees. Essentially, when you look at the full details of this contract, Aidan Hutchinson is locked into Detroit on a practical matter for the next 5 years. So, really good deal for a really good player who I picked to win Defensive Player of the Year before the season started. Off to a fast start this year, 5, 6 sacks, a pressure machine, and of course, the heart and soul of the Lions defense. Very well deserved. And it's pretty crazy when you look at it, Ben. But the Lions and the amount of players they've extended over here over the last 2 years, such a long list from Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Penei Sewell and Taylor Decker and Ali McNeil and Kirby Joseph and now Aidan Hutchinson as well. And the crazy part is next year's is the draft after Aidan Hutchinson. They all become eligible at the end of the season. That is Jahmyr Gibbs, that is Jack Campbell, that is Sam Laporta. So we'll see how they're going to fit all these guys into the salary cap. They're going to have to add some void years eventually on some of these deals to make it all palatable. But Detroit is doing it the right way. They draft well, they develop well, they pay their guys. It's the way to build a franchise.
Yeah, I was a little bit curious about the timing. Do you think that that's something that really does take more broad scope here? It really has to take a certain level of trust, right? Like between the two sides, there has to be trust between the player and the organization. There has to be trust between the agent and the player and the organization. Like, can you break down a little bit how a team like Detroit's able to operate in that way?
I mean, I think it does take a lot of, like you said, trust, but also having an organization that has proven they do it the right way. And I think players see Detroit does it the right way. Ever since Brad Holmes got there, Dan Campbell got there, the way they've paid all their players, they reward all their players. Like they have not had many players who are homegrown players who are success stories leave the building. Like they really take care of their guys. We'll see how it keeps on going over here because eventually it does become impossible. But this is an organization that has done it the right way. And like I said, they're okay with negotiating in season in good faith. And when you hear agents, and I speak to a lot of agents, when you ask them, hey, which organization do you like negotiating with? Which ones are more difficult to negotiate with? Detroit and their negotiator, Mike Disner, like they're always talked about as a team that does it the right way. Yeah, obviously there's two sides to tango. An organization wants this thing, that agent wants that thing, but eventually they bridge the gap and figure it out. Jameson Williams before the season, they figured out a deal as well, and it looked like it wouldn't get done, but eventually they figured it out. So this is an organization that has done that, and like I said, if they can't get a deal done before the season, they've made it clear to agents like, hey. Let the season start. Let's see what your client does. Maybe he proves us wrong. Maybe we'll up our offer. Maybe you want to come back and lower it, whatever it is. We'll figure it out and stay in communication. Again, that is what good organizations do. And the Lions over the last 5, 6 years have flipped from what everyone thought was a laughing stock to one of the more respected organizations in the NFL.
Do you think that there was ever really a real discussion that he could try to surpass that number that we saw with Parsons? I know you said that, there's a certain bit of reality I'm sure that has to come with it, but when we saw that Miles Garrett number originally with 40 million, I mean, He's the 4th highest paid pass rusher now, which is insane to say with TJ Watt. Obviously, they're at 41 million, I believe.
41. Yep.
Yeah. So, but you don't think there was really like this, like really heavy push of no, 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 we gotta break it.
I mean, when that trade happened, I tweeted that same day. I think the Packers just did this trade. They got this elite player. At the same time, they might have messed over their old division rivals, the Lions, who have been actively negotiating for the last few months on an Aidan Hutchinson deal. So I think it definitely had an impact. And again, they tabled it. They said, let the season start. Let's see how he plays in regular season action off the injury, and then we'll revisit here during the season and figure it out and bridge the gap. And their way of bridging the gap was we're not going to beat the average annual value of Micah Parsons, but we'll give you a better guarantee structure over here, where essentially he is it's not fully guaranteed, it's injury guarantees, but it's practical guarantees that year over year are going to turn into full guarantees a year early, and you're going to be on the team through, for the next 4 or 5 years as a practical matter, no matter what. So that's the trade-off that they did over here, and Aiden was okay with it. He didn't want to play any more games of here this season without taking this deal, and the deal got done now, and now he's locked in for the next, the foreseeable future.
It's pretty funny to, I'm sure if you go back even on X now to more the Stafford days, like people were calling this a poverty franchise. Like this wasn't a team that you really wanted. Like if you're getting dumped to the Lions, it probably wasn't a very good feeling for whomever the player is. It's really incredible what Brad Holmes and team have done to build a team that's not only successful on the team, on the field, but Detroit feels like a place that like you were saying, like if you polled NFL players around the league, like and you talk to their buddies, this seems like the team that you want to be on.
You're 100% right. You're 100% right. And this really all stems back to when they were hired. I mean, the way they decided to take on this rebuild, I remember it like it was yesterday. The Matthew Stafford trade was the first big move, bringing in Jared Goff, getting those 2 first-round picks, but also identifying the culture they want to have. Like, I remember the first few free agent signings they made. It was like Michael Brockers and it was Jamal Williams. It was guys who are culture guys, positive guys, guys who could really bring out the best in each other, been there, done that type of guys. And that's what they brought in at first. And of course, then they started drafting and Brad Holmes with the Rams, which is where he came from. All the success the Rams have had with their drafting, Brad Holmes was a gigantic part of that. And he brought all of his talent evaluation that he was able to do there over to Detroit. And their first pick was Penny Sewell. Amon-Ra St. Brown was in that draft. All the building blocks for the future, they all came through the draft. And, there was one press conference that I remember. I don't remember exactly when it was. Was it the off season? I believe it was. But Brad Holmes literally started uh, pointing out all the reporters in the room and saying, hey, you guys didn't want us to take Penny Sewell. You guys didn't want us to take Amon-Ra St. Brown. You guys didn't want us to take Derek Barnes. You didn't want us to do this. And look at us now. We got all those picks right. They know how to draft. I'll never forget the Jameer Gibbs, Jack Campbell, Sam Laporta draft. Everyone
Yeah,
said those
Brian
picks.
Branch in that draft
They
too.
said
Like,
Brian Branch should have been their first round pick. It would have made more sense. Like they know how to draft. They know how to identify players. They know how to have that belief in their system, in their scouting. They basically have the players that they look for. Doesn't matter what the consensus board says. It doesn't make a difference what other teams
i.e.,
that
Isaac Tesla.
exactly. That's another perfect example of trading 3 third-round picks for him, and everyone thought they're crazy. At the end of the day, you start giving them the benefit of the doubt, and we're seeing it all right now. I am fascinated to see if they can continue paying all these guys. There is a bit of a credit you got to give also to Sheila Ford Hamp, who took over the ownership from her mother. And when she was in ownership, a lot of people did not like her. And she took it over. She hired these 2 guys in Darren Campbell and Brad Holmes, and she stayed away. She's like, you know what? You guys are running your way. I'm giving you 6-year contracts. And keep in mind, they started 0-11-1, and people were like, get rid of them. They're not good. There's one press conference when they were 0-6 the next year or 1-6, whatever it was, when people were asking Dan, are you worried about your job security? And of course, everything flipped from there. They started winning games. They won the Week 18 game over the Packers, and the rest is kind of history here. So their entire rebuild has been fun to watch, and it's really a kudos to everybody.
I'm sure that's what Aaron Glenn is trying to remind the Jets fans right now. It's like, hey, I'm from this tree. I'm from this tree. Also, when talking about taking the right guy, I'm guessing that even though Trayvon Walker's had his moments, I'm guessing they probably wish they had taken Aiden's number one. But that's rather here nor there. The number I want to talk to you about now, though, is that 141 million guaranteed. Is this going to become the new negotiating number for players that are non-quarterbacks?
I mean, I would imagine so. I mean, I don't foresee any more big time extensions happening in season like this for non quarterbacks. Part of the next one that we're talking about is going to be in the offseason, maybe Will Anderson in Houston. So, as we know, man, you know this. As every deal that happens, the next big player tries to surpass that, whether it's average annual value, whether it's the total guarantees, the full guarantees, how much in year one, how much in year two. There's all these different ways of looking at contracts. But yeah, this is the next big number that we're looking at over here. And keep in mind, he still had this year left and next year left on his contract. So he's under contract for the next 6 years with this deal.
You think that playing into seeing how well he could bounce back from the leg injury last year did play a little bit into this as well?
I mean, I think listen, they were willing to pay him before the season. Let's make
Right.
that very
True,
clear.
true, true, true.
They were very satisfied with his recovery, but at the same time, I don't think they were willing to go to the extent that the player and agent wanted to go to, especially after the Michael Parsons deal. So that's when it was like, hey, let's get him on the field. Let's see him week one, two, three, four, five, and let's revisit this over here at some point during the season. We'll be in good faith. We'll do it the right way. That's the way we do it, and that's how we got done.
Love it. Brad Holmes, holler at us. We'd love to have you on NFL Spotlight. Anyway, we have got to talk about some of the trades that are taking place here. We haven't still quite had like the big marquee name yet moved during these last, few days, but we've had some guys that could be impact players moved, including Michael Carter II going from the New York Jets out to the Philadelphia Eagles. John Mechie III being traded back there, a 6-7 swap, also involved in that. What do you think about the compensation in this deal, as well as what impact he's going to make on that secondary?
Can I say something else over here? We started this whole thing with the Aidan Hutchinson AI thing.
Did
Six
you have
seven
this
is a
one lined up for that too?
no, I didn't, but 6'7", I realized is a very big deal. You cannot say that anymore. That's another thing that I realized in doing all
I
these
didn't even
trades.
notice. I didn't even
Yeah,
notice.
yeah,
Oh
yeah,
god.
yeah. My tweets have had 6'7" swap in them, and everyone has been commenting that as well. So I'm learning a lot over here in these last couple of days here. But all the trades we're kind of going to talk about right now are all these 6'7" swaps over here. So yes, this one, the Jets are going to get John Mechie, who is being traded for the second time in a few months. Michael Carter II, who was the likeliest Jet to get traded. We said that on Tuesday's show when we did the full trade deadline preview, when we spoke about cornerbacks and safeties. We said he's the likeliest Jet to get traded. He is headed to Philadelphia, and it makes a lot of sense because the Eagles all off season long, and all season long, I should say, have been trying to figure out their cornerback room. How is it going to be positioned? Because Kenyon Mitchell has one side taken care of, but they moved on from Darius Slay and they moved on from Isaiah Rodgers, and Cooper DeJean has been playing the nickel, but they've wanted to experiment with him on the outside because Adoree Jackson has now really filled that role really well. They traded for Jacorian Bennett from the Raiders. That also has not worked out. He's been injured. So Michael Carter II, who was once paid as the highest paid slot corner in football, now could slide in as their slot corner. And Cooper DeJean could literally play everywhere. I mean, he is a chess piece. He could play outside, he could play inside, he could play safety. They could use him in a different way now to take care of the deficiencies they've had with Adoree Jackson and other corners on the field. Some people might think this is a very low return over here for the Jets, but keep in mind, there are a couple things over here working against the Jets. First of all, he did have that high salary, but secondly, a big reason why he couldn't necessarily get traded around the NFL was because the agent was also involved. Michael Carter II, like we said on Tuesday's show, had about $5 million in injury guarantees on his contract for next year. Teams did not want to take that on. So his agent was involved in all of these talks when the Jets were trying to trade him. And Michael Carter II was okay with going to Philadelphia. He's actually expecting his first child in here very soon. So that's a very not a big difference, New Jersey, Philadelphia here. And he was willing to eliminate that $5 million in injury guarantees for next year to eventually make this trade happen. So that was a big part of this deal. in order for it to happen. And that's how this deal got done over here. As for the other player in the deal, John Mechie, he's in the final year of his contract. Talented young receiver, has not really had much of a role in Philadelphia. They used him as a kick return. That didn't really work out so well, but he's a player who's going to have opportunities with the Jets because Garrett Wilson has missed the last 2 games. He was not on practice earlier this week as well. Even though they're on a bye, they had to practice the other day. So he's still recovering from his injury. Josh Reynolds, who's their wide receiver two, was placed on IR over the weekend. So they need receivers. And Mechie, the final year of his contract, is going to get a real shot of here off the Jets.
I want to rewind here for a second to that detail that Michael Carter was willing to waive that $5 million. I'm sure his agent was absolutely just like, oh, okay, okay. But goodness, do Philadelphia fans have to just, he's coming out the gate saying, I want to be part of
Yeah.
this. That is
Yeah.
an incredible thing. Can you think of anything quite like that from a player of his, I don't want to say caliber, meaning it in a negative way, but this isn't a guy that's, made $100 million in his deals. Like this is that's a significant chunk of money.
Yes. Yeah, and just to be clear, an injury guarantee is not a full guarantee. So the only way he would have gotten that money is had he gotten a season-ending injury and cannot pass the physical in the offseason. That's the only way he really got that money. But
This is football.
Philadelphia,
That's a big risk.
exactly, 100%. So he's doing that. That's why he had some control in all of this. So over the last 2 weeks, and he's been recovering from an injury as well. He's been in, the agent and the player. They've been talking to the Jets about, hey, where do you want to go? Where does it make sense? These teams have called us, but when you see the 6 and 7 swap over here, the reason it's so low is because of the contract and that part of the contract which teams did not want to take on. So when he heard Philadelphia and he heard, that's a small, up the turnpike over here. That's an easy thing for him to do with his family and his play and his position and what he does in a winning organization. Now, that's why this deal happens. Again, that is the benefit of being a winning team. A team that has, players around the NFL who talk good about them. And that's how the Eagles were able to get this deal done.
Howie Roseman does it again. Kind of an interesting duo of trades coming out from the New England Patriots. You don't necessarily, I don't know if you'd classify it as selling moves because the team is so damn good so far to start the season, but it's very rare that you see a team that is high of quality record wise making deals to essentially sell off players. Kyle Duggar going out to the Steelers, who presumably are a team that you're competing against, and then Keon White going out to the NFC, playing for the 49ers now. What did you make of these deals besides, I assume, a little bit of cost cutting when it comes to Duggar?
Yeah, I mean, Duggar, we spoke about him really, all off season long, training camp. I mean, we knew something was up there. Not much of a surprise here with him. He just didn't fit what the Patriots want to do with their scheme, even though he did start a couple of games and played most of the snaps versus the Titans a couple of weeks ago. I think he played 100% of the snaps, but he, ever since that injury that he had, I believe it was an ankle injury, it just has not been the exact same player. He's used, whenever he's used in the box, he's a better player than when he's used, down there in the secondary and trying to cover guys. So that's basically been the issue with Kyle Duggar. That's not exactly the type of player that the Patriots want in their scheme. Keep in mind, they also moved out from a similar player in Jabril Peppers before the year started. Fittingly, both of them are now in Pittsburgh together. So not much of a surprise that they were willing to move on from him. The Steelers just lost Deshaun Elliott to a knee injury, so he's going to be the replacement there. Keon White, a bit of a simpler story. Former second round pick, had 5 sacks last year, healthy and active this past week. That was the telltale sign that something's about to go down with him. Another player that definitely has shown potential, but also has been just disappearing at times. And 49ers, they lost Nick Bosa for the year. They've been looking for a pass rusher. This was an easy, low risk, potential high reward type of a move by them. 6-7 swap over here, doing that again. And essentially, they traded for Bryce Huff before the year. He's had success. He's injured right now, but they've been able to get some of these pass rushers who have not had success with their previous teams to come to San Francisco and have success over there. So that's the idea over here with the Patriots. We mentioned both these names on Tuesday's episode. Even though they're 6-2, there are still players from the previous regime who have not fit with Mike Vrabel over here and what he wants to do in New England. Anthony Jennings, another player, I think we mentioned him on Tuesday. I can see him getting traded over here before the deadline. But as for the Patriots, I think they're still in buy mode. I think they're going to be strategic and very cautious over here because they do know and they do realize they are ahead of the timeline that everyone had them on. So we'll see if they decide to be like the Commanders last year, who are also ahead of their timeline and traded for Marshall Lattimore, or they try to do some smaller moves over here, maybe adding a defensive player, maybe adding another receiver. I don't think they need a receiver. There were some talks about that in the league circles the last couple of weeks, but they're going to be very cautiously optimistic with what they do. But keep this in mind, after these deals, they now have 10 picks in the upcoming draft, all of that in the first 6 rounds, and it might even become 11 picks because the Keon White trade, the 7th round pick they actually sent to San Francisco, could come back to them if he plays in 6 or 7 games. I forgot which one it is. So they might have 11 picks in this upcoming draft. So they could definitely make a move or two. And considering they're 6-2, obviously you should expect them to do at least something here before Tuesday.
It's kind of cool to see Elliot Wolf having an opportunity to really control this roster, isn't it?
I'm assuming you're being sarcastic.
Am I?
Yeah, I mean, Elliot Wolf is still the head decision maker, but Mike Vrabel definitely is running the show in New England, along with Ryan Cowan, along with John Stryker, previous guest on the show over here. Elliot Wolf is there, but a lot of his pieces and draft picks are kind of gone right now.
It's an interesting dynamic there, but I mean, it is kind of cool to see the roster being developed in a different way. Vrabel obviously having a whole lot to do with it, thus guys Ducker, being sent out, which was just not a scheme fit. We have to talk about one more trade that is, again, not necessarily of high importance, but one that does include another player that was taken with a little bit of draft stock. Roger McCreary going out to the Rams, another conditional trade swap here. This one 5'6". We don't get to say your fun new favorite reference, you little millennial. All right, let's talk about it. What do you think about this trade for the Titans? Is it just the first of many to come?
Yeah, I mean, it's the second already that they've done over here. They also traded Jarvis Brownlee to the Jets a few weeks ago. So when you look at cornerback rooms in the NFL, there might not be a more depleted one now than the Tennessee Titans after trading McCreary and Brownlee, two young guys who are at the back end of their rookie contracts. But the Rams, they've been looking for secondary help. They like their safety with Cam Curl. They like some of their cornerbacks, but they need one more notable name to take care of the outside, and that is what Roger McCreary does. It just makes a lot of sense. They have 5-2 on the year. Quentin Lake on the back end is another guy over there with Cam Curl, but they needed some help in the cornerback room along with Kobe Durant. Akello Witherspoon is injured, so he's not available. So they go out here and get Roger McCreary, who was in the final year of his deal. Is a scheme fit there for what Chris Shula does as a defensive coordinator? We know how good the defensive line is with Jared Verse and Brandon Fisk and Byron Young and all those guys. But they definitely need one more guy in the secondary. Some people thought maybe they'll go, big name hunting over here, try to find the big name. I don't really think that big name was really available in this year's NFL trade deadline market. So they go out there and get Roger McCreary. That's their first move they're making here. We already saw the 49ers make their move so far by trading for the pass rusher and Keon White. The Seahawks for now have been very quiet, but we mentioned this on Tuesday. Keep an eye on the NFC West. We've already had those two trades. I don't think the NFC West is done. Three teams there with 5 wins, aggressive GMs. I think more is coming in that division.
A lot of exciting stuff coming up here on the trade deadline front. We'll be keeping an eye on it. Obviously, a lot of the action that happens here tonight through Monday is going to impact what we see happening on Tuesday. And at My Sports Update is the right place to have your notifications turned on and watch everything. So, Ari, anything else we need to get to before we get out of here?
That will do it. Ben, you have anything to say about your Ravens here tonight before they play and get to 3-5, maybe?
Let's go Ravens.
That will do it here for our Thursday, October 30 edition of the NFL Spotlight Show. We will be back here on Monday to recap the rest of week 9. Maybe, just maybe, the Ravens will be 3-5 and make a trade to try to improve their team and get back in the AFC North. We will see all of you here on Monday morning.